This is going to be a tough one. This is your letting your fastuosity flag fly leader fan radio network.
What do you mean?
And KFAN.com. 3 minutes and
Almost
42
4
seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We welcome you back to the Bumper to Bumper program. I could lie to you and say that we're starting so late because I had to practice letting your fastuosity flag fly leader several times before I was convinced I could even say it. But actually, Common held me up at the vestibule.
It was quite a conversation, it looked like.
He is wont to do on just an absolutely beautiful Friday afternoon here for the Friday Football Beast on the Fan in the Twin Cities we affectionately refer to as Minneapolis and St. Louis Park. My name is Dan Barreiro. I host the program. Guardsy produces. And we will be here the distance today again, I'm assuming, until 6:30 tonight.
That is correct.
We will reboot the Bradshaw and Bryan inbox in just a couple of minutes. We'll give you details on an outstanding array of guests, and we'll try to cover all of the stories that we think should be covered on a day like this, and perhaps a couple that people think we should not even mention at all. But that's what we pride ourselves on, surprising you. I am excited because I don't think I've shared this with you, although I'd mentioned it via Twitter. We have, it wasn't that difficult for me to find it. I don't know why I haven't done this in other years, though. We have the exclusive Marty Wexler III scouting report on the Minnesota Vikings #1 draft pick.
Is that right?
I'm not talking about audio. I'm not saying we're having him on again. That's not possible. But we have sort of the overview. He's got with every scouting report, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of nuance. But then there's at the top of it, kind of a summary, an overview. And it's pretty interesting. And maybe, depending on how you want to look at it, pretty frightening. And it is related to letting your fastuosity flag fly leader. Do you know what the word fastuosity means?
I don't think I do.
I didn't either until I went to Merriam-Webster synonym help, because I wanted it to be an F word. I wanted it to be with flag. And so I looked hard for, can you find me a synonym for hubris or arrogance that starts with the letter F? And it turns out that word is fastuosity.
I can't believe we've never heard of it before.
Fastuosity.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of the word.
Knowing the description.
I think it exists. I'm not sure. But I think it applies today to your Minnesota Vikings, your Minnesota Vikings head coach, your Minnesota Vikings, what do we call him? I guess general manager, acting general manager, and even your Minnesota Vikings ownership group. If we really pare it down, boil it down, and boil it down to its essence, there's a lot of arrogance in this organization right now. A lot of hubris on a number of fronts, which we will attempt to cover early in the show. But most people by now know the story of our #1 pick. His name is Caleb Banks. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he is viewed as terms of raw ability, if you want to believe some of the experts, he may have first ballot Hall of Fame-ness in him. That's what you're hearing. Or he's being compared to guys who are going to, defensive linemen who are headed to the Hall of Fame. So that's the given on him if you want to accept that level of praise and positivity. But as we also know, he's broken 2 metatarsals. Well, actually, I think it's the same metatarsal twice in is it his left foot? I believe it's his left foot.
Yes.
Not that it really matters all that much. The most recent occasion was the combine, correct?
Bad cleats.
Bad cleats is among the reasons given. So our front office's, I guess you could say, justification for the pick is on talent. When you're picking 18, you have no chance to get a player projected to be this good, right? That's the whole bit. That's the whole point of it. But that's why you have to think about taking him, even if there is an implicit, maybe even explicit in this case, gamble associated with it. And this is where the arrogance, though, comes in. This is where the fastuosity, I believe, comes into the equation. The Vikings last night operated as if this was an organization that had so much draft equity and success in just filling rosters with rotational, regular players, not even necessarily superstars, but players who capably fill positions that also mean you do not have to spend extra money on free agency just to have potentially a good enough team to be a factor. Well, by definition, we have no draft equity. If we did, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah would still have been making the decisions, or at least deferring to either the head coach or the defensive coordinator to make some of those decisions. What's been made clear every day by the Jackals leading into the draft is what? We've got a lot of holes to fill, and we can't keep relying on free agency to fill them. Because 2 years ago, that worked. This past year, not so much. And it's putting too much pressure on your organization to constantly try to fill those gaps through free agency. It's a nice little tool to have. We appreciate it. We wish the Twins would appreciate it more than they do, but you can't continually go back to it because that in itself gets expensive. And if instead you're filling some of those holes for starting positions with guys you just picked, by definition, they don't make as much money. And that's going to open the door to spending money elsewhere if you would like to. We've got no draft equity, which means, I think, in theory, we can't swing. Right now, we can't afford to swing for the fences in round one. If we'd had like 3 straight years of good to very good drafts, you say, you know what? We've earned our arrogance, our hubris, and our equity. We're going to roll the dice a little bit here. Because, A, we don't have that many holes, and B, we've got all these players we can point to who have now become part of our core. That doesn't exist. That points back to a high degree of fastuosity. What's the other end of it? You discuss it, mention it on the Enough Said program, which starts with draft coverage tonight on Fox 9, 9:30 on 9, I think. I don't remember the time. Look it up in your local listing, 7:30 on Fox 9 Plus, maybe. Whatever the times are, you can get it via Fox Local. The other half of the hubris is, well, you know what we have? We got a lot of deep playoff runs. So we can afford to take a little bit of a chance on a player who might not help us immediately, but who stays healthy, can be part of our core and help us continue to be a very good team. Minnesota Vikings under KOC, and you could say Kwesi, although now he's gone. I did the addition on this. They have a grand total of 0 playoff victories. If that doesn't say hubris, I don't know what does. And that's why, as much as I'm a swing for the fences in the draft guy, I'm the guy who was almost bored with Thieneman. God, we got to get a safety first round. Okay, it seems like it's the obvious pick.
Your Bears got him now.
And the Bears did get him. And in retrospect, I would say, well, if this is the alternative, I don't think anybody expects Thieneman's going to be a washout, that he's going to be good to very good. Maybe he'll be great. Who knows on that? But you take your best shot at it. You got to get doubles. Hell, we didn't even take singles in the draft, for God's sake. Maybe a triple. But right now, we can't afford to take a shot on home runs with a guy who's already had 2 problems with the same foot, weighs 400 pounds. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get my point. Even though we got Mayo Clinic in Rochester and we got TCO we got the greatest doctors,
of course,
in the history of doctordom, but they can't I don't think they can invent the perfect metatarsal. I don't think you can you surgically add a more durable metatarsal?
Probably.
Maybe you can.
Get a
I
little
don't
extra
know.
calcium.
Even that seems like it might be problematic. So, again, I love emphasis on the defensive line. This team has not emphasized the meat and potatoes of the offensive and defensive lines enough over a period of years. Now, they have started doing that on the offensive line, but in general, I've never felt we valued in the trenches the way the best teams do. Not the prettiest teams do, the best teams do. So that part of it, I get. Anchor in the middle of the defensive line sounds wonderful. But this isn't the team to do it. The backdrop's the backdrop. I didn't make it up. It's the reality of the situation. So to me, that speaks to fastuosity. And there's another compelling part of the fastuosity discussion related to the owners that I think we need to get to as well. But first,
the fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. First keyword on this Friday is rich. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword.
And I don't want any of our unofficial researchers to look up the word fastuosity and tell me it doesn't exist. It doesn't matter if it doesn't exist, even though I think it does. And in this case, it served my purposes. It's a word that starts with the letter F. And for that reason alone, I think we have to go.
The one thing that always checks the box is when you're initially watching the tape and you have to look back on the height and weight, because it's hard to imagine sometimes with some of the things he does. There's some highlight-worthy things that first step, hand usage, violence. He's got the ability to push the pocket from just a strength and mass standpoint, but it's the movement skills.
It's not the question. It's not the question. It sounds great. It sounds inspirational. But if he isn't playing because he's hurt or hasn't proven he can stay healthy, none of that matters. Again, different team, I get it, because we talked about this before. I love home run swings, even when they have risks. But what I'll say again to those trail ref guys, just bitter. Hasn't even played yet. Well, that's part of the problem. He doesn't play enough, but be that as it may. The issue is these same people, starting with Brzezinski, have sent a message for the last 2 weeks at least that indicates indirectly we can't waste draft picks. We have to add players. Now, best case is you add a star, but that more important than that is, because of the recent history, we just got to make sure we get players who can be part of our rotation. We've got to get starters. And I believed them. That's my point. And that's why I'm saying great idea, wrong team. Bad timing based on everything we know and everything that we have been told. I'll give you another part of the hubris for me. And we've kind of, I think, talked about this and alluded to it. This goes back to more the fastuosity of the owners. There's still something about this decision to let someone we still are insisting is not necessarily a front runner for the permanent job to run the draft. The decision, again, was made, even though you had plenty of time after you fired Kwesi. When did we fire Kwesi? Do you remember?
It was like 2 months ago. It was Feb, wasn't it?
More than enough time to replace him.
Maybe March.
More than enough time. And we decided we're going to slow play it the way we're going to do that. I think there's a certain amount of arrogance there. And we even asked the question, who do we ask this of the other day? Do you lose potentially some candidates, some of the best candidates, because they go, wait a minute now. You now want to hire me. I'm inheriting the coach. I'm inheriting his staff. I'm inheriting the draft swings and misses, including a number one. that you just had a month ago, presuming that, he gets hired in the next month. Now, the comeback from that person, I think, was, well, there ain't that many of these jobs, and if you really want it,
right,
that's probably not going to get in the way. But it's let's face it, the sequencing is highly unusual. Not saying it's never happened. Not saying it can't even be successful, but it's not standard, is it? By any means?
No, January 30th is when they fired him, too. So even before the Super Bowl. And it wouldn't have been out of line or out of bounds or out of the normal hiring process to have someone in place by the draft, because that's usually the season, right?
Yes.
After the playoffs, you talk about Black Monday.
That's it.
All of that. And we did talk a little bit about it, I think on Enough Said last week, that remember when Glenn Taylor let Milton Newton draft? He was the interim.
Yes, I do.
I don't remember who they fired. I don't know if it was Khan or who it was. And Taylor's, I guess, reasoning was, well, I'd like to see how he does and go through the process. And we're all like, I mean, he got savaged for that. And the Vikings are kind of doing the same thing. Brzezinski has a little bit more track record with the team.
Yeah.
So it's not a perfect comparison, but
not being in the very often the chief decision maker mode, for sure.
Right. So that's why it's a little strange, especially if you're not going to give him the job.
All the best monikers are taken. Guy writes, fastuosity is a word, Dan, and who cares if it's not? It's like when Steve Miller wrote Pompatus of Love for the Joker. It doesn't matter if it's not a word, it works. That's from all the best monikers are taken, Guy. Dan, they keep referencing the Viking medical staff as a reason this will work out. Is this the same medical staff that struggled to keep Darisaw, McCarthy, and Grenard on the field for much of last season? Or said Darnold was fine getting destroyed in the Rams game? This team does not have equity for these types of high-risk bets. I have successfully talked myself into Caleb Banks, Dave in Chicago writes, as I do with Vikings picks annually. But the process reminded me a lot of the time I talked myself into Laquan Treadwell.
Oh.
There's a good callback.
Yeah,
from the
forgot
past.
about him.
Dan, I had metatarsal issues, didn't require surgery, but had to change shoes. I don't have any concerns about the surgery. Love the fact that he came back to a losing team. Dan, the problem is they just fired the GM for making poor draft choices, and last night they reached for a guy who could be a risk or a gamble. If he is a bust, Brzezinski and KOC should be fired. Some said the guy could have lasted until day 3. 651 guy writes, you're a fraud. You think we should sit with our teeth chattering in the back of a dark draft room, ruminating about past draft failures. They have to draft to win, not to tread water. Bob, Dan lecturing others on arrogance is quite hilarious, and also shocking that Dan is hating something a Minnesota team did. I have zero problem with them taking a potential home run swing. Here's that I mentioned trail ref guy. Just talk about basketball for bleep's sake. Nobody cares. He hasn't played one snap. Trail ref guy, you're no better than that. You know everybody cares. Not everybody has come to the same conclusion. And no, he hasn't played one snap. But if trail ref guy can calm down just a little bit, I think he has to understand all I am doing is evaluating on the basis of everything I have been told, even up to this draft, about the Vikings' intentions. And that this doesn't add up. This is, again, the sort of high-risk move that I think is absolutely defensible when you just have an endless array of successful draft picks, roster that doesn't have any holes, where you can say, this isn't why we're doing it, but we can risk the possibility that he just ends up injured for 2 or 3 years. Because we got so many other pieces that have worked, we can do that. Or that we've had a number of deep playoff runs, too. Combination of both of those things. That's, to me, the issue. It's the team and its current condition. And what we had been led to believe from inside the building was just keep getting on base. We haven't been even getting on base.
No.
We gotta have, if you look at the good teams, obviously at their best that draft well, they draft stars, or they discover a star, or they reach and get a star. But or more importantly, what they do is they just don't swing and miss very much, where they go, well, this guy's not a top 10 linebacker, but he's probably top 25, and he's suitable. He fills a role for us. That's, I think, where this team kind of is as well. And by the way, I will be saying some very kind things about a Minnesota team a little bit later in the broadcast. In fact, it might even be for our during our visit with our next guest. And speaking of guests, the lineup kind of moved around on the Friday Football Beast today. Ben Gessling is going to join 5:30. Trent Tucker is going to join at 4:30. And when we come back, it's going to be Lavelle Neal III. I'm sure we'll talk draft. I will find out if he's excited about the fact that the Bears get the safety that everybody projected that the Vikings were going to take and that the Vikings could have taken, right? But chose not to. We're going to have to get to the bottom of this new X controversy involving the Lavelle account that you brought to my attention that I was unaware of, that keeps getting some traction.
Yep.
And where was he today? He was at hockey practice, right?
Yes, he was at Wild practice.
So we'll obviously talk.
He was at Game 3. I saw him there.
So the Wild is an late afternoon game tomorrow, correct?
4:30.
Okay.
Right here on the Fan.
And then the Wolves, 7:30?
7:30.
7:30.
Right here on the Fan.
You're basically, you do have a good doubleheader there where
it's great.
It's not where it's overlapping. That should be one game's done and you go to the next one, unless the Wild go into double overtime and lose again. Which would not be advised at this point.
It's a must-win tomorrow.
We've got to get a victory tomorrow at the X. So let's pause. Keep the text coming. A lot of other good controversies to get to before this program wraps up. By the way, the best draft nugget I saw is that when the current commissioner, it's Roger Goodell, correct? His first year as commissioner, I think it was like 2007-ish. First round took basically 6 hours and change.
Right.
Last night, it weighed in at under 3 hours.
It was great.
It's unbelievable.
Get in, get out.
Because they cut it to, 8 minutes between picks?
8 minutes between the picks.
Everybody seemed to move, and that's palatable, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, that feels good. That feels better than the Wagnerian opera that it used to be at 6 hours. So we'll get to Lavelle in the draft, Lavelle in the Wild, Lavelle on the Wolves, and who knows what else when we return. Lavelle Neal III, 64686. That's the Bradshaw and Bryant text line. Reach out to us, as I know you will. Lavelle joining us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline as I reach for the phone to pot him up. Lavelle, how are you?
I'm doing swell, man. I'm doing great. Hope you're doing well.
We're doing okay, and I know my sources say you could not be more tickled that the Vikings decided to reach so that your club could get the world-class safety that we have been told Thieneman represents.
Yeah, that was a hilarious moment because I've been needling Paul over the last couple of weeks about, his much talked about flight in Indianapolis sitting next to the Oregon kicker, who said Thieneman is supposed to be like the greatest safety since Harrison Smith, and everybody was mocking Thieneman to the Vikings. I didn't think that he would get down to 25 and get into the Bears range. So when the Vikes decided to take make a risky pick in the 6'6" defensive tackle with bad feet, I'm like, wait a minute, can this guy drop to 25? And lo and behold, he did. So yeah, the Bear fans in town are happy with how that transpired. We needed a safety, and now we got one. And the Vikings get to play against them twice a year.
All right, let me argue against myself from the opening segment of the show as you join the discussion. And I say,
what was the opening segment?
And I say, well, it'll become apparent on the basis of the way I'm now arguing the other side of it. What if this lineman, defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman, a position that has been a big meat and potatoes issue for the Vikings for a long time, ends up being as good as many people feel he can be if they can figure out this metatarsal thing? Can you make the argument that when you're drafting 18, you have to occasionally be willing to swing for the fences, even with the inherent risk involved? What do you think?
I think there's times to swing for the fences. I totally believe in that. I don't know if this was the time.
That's the question.
The Vikings need to have a good draft from top to bottom, and you want maybe more of a sure thing. Let's say in a world in which the Vikings had the 14th and the 18th pick, then I wouldn't mind taking a reach with the second first-round pick. You know what I'm saying?
Totally agree. Yep.
Yep. But here's the thing: they can all rip us apart because I mentioned in my 3-2 pitch for Sunday, I thought it was kind of risky considering the situation with the Vikings right now because of poor drafting in recent drafts. They've got some holes in that roster. They need to be filled with young talent that's inexpensive on rookie contracts. So they need to get sure things. You want your first round pick to be automatic plug and play, unless you're Ty Simpson. So, but they have, if we look down 3 or 4 years, that ends up being a good pick, it'll be an argument for we should not be automatically criticizing picks on the day of the draft. We have to wait 3 or 4 years for it to pan out. We do this with the baseball draft because we know we're not going to see some of these guys for 5 years because they have to go through the minors, and we're all just jumping the gun. But the NFL draft provides a verbal banquet, man. It provides the type of chatter and the banner and instant reaction. And the reaction to the drafting of this big 6'6" defensive tackle is that, man, he might have bad feet, he might have foot problems, but people have recovered before and been able to play for a long time. So yeah, I can see you arguing against yourself. I'm skeptical of the move as well. I may have to eat crow in 3 years, but I have a history eating crow. So.
Yeah, we all have to from time to time, and I think you've argued it pretty well. It's not whether swinging for the fences is a bad idea. It's time and place and team. And I do think there's a certain level of arrogance that a team that's got no playoff equity and a team that's got no draft equity makes the kind of move where you go, well, we're bulletproof. We can do whatever we want to do. I mean, we're the Vikings. That's what's fascinating to me. And maybe they know something. Maybe KOC knows he's got a lifetime deal. Maybe the Wills absolutely love him and said, you don't ever have to worry about anything here. I have no idea. But, there's no question this guy's supposed to be good. But there's something counterintuitive about metatarsal issues and 330 pounds interior lineman. It just doesn't. It smells of chronic issues that keep cropping up, and where you have to continually start over. And so then it's even crueler that because the head coach has made it sound like we're seeing this. We saw this guy on tape do stuff. I've never seen anybody this size do those things. And all this is going to do is make it crueler. Is it because there's not any question about that part of it? The question is whether his body will allow him to continue to do those things on the field. That's the issue.
Right. It's funny. I was driving back I had to go to Dodge Center yesterday to work on a story, and I was driving back, and it was late. Well, it was during the draft, and I waited till after the Vikings draft. I had to call a high school coach in the state and ask him his opinion of a player. And I said, when he asked me, he said hello, and I said, Coach, I really thought the Vikings are going to take the safety from Oregon. He's like, well, I've been reading about this guy. You know what? It sounds like the first foot injury might have been misdiagnosed or something screwy may have happened, and that second surgery may have done the trick. So he may be okay. So you can't teach that type of size and ability at that position. I said, okay, well, we'll see what happens. And since then, I was talking with someone who was telling me that the Vikings foot and ankle specialist, either he still is or he recently retired and still is an advisor, is one of the best in the country. And the thinking is that he had to sign off on this. And if he did, that's another, argument that the Vikings can make, saying that this is why, we made this pick. So I'm curious to see how this thing plays out. Now, to get to your point about organizational arrogance, there is a recent history with that with the Vikings, too. Is this arrogance just being placed in another area? Because a year ago, they had the hubris to think that we could just hand the keys over to J.J. McCarthy
exactly right.
and let two quality quarterbacks leave, and we'll be okay with this kick-ass defense. And that was a decision that has set this franchise back a couple years, maybe 3.
Pattern. It's a pattern.
So hopefully this isn't another bout of organizational arrogance when it comes to identifying who can play.
We know we're good at collaboration, but what we're also finding out is we're very good at arrogance, too. A lot of good texts are coming in for you specifically. Here's one. This is from 507 Guy. Dan, can you do me a favor and ask Lavelle if we've earned the right to listen to him today, please? What does that mean? What does that mean?
Oh, they're upset because of me on X because I've been getting, because I have my settings are set up to that people who follow me, where I follow, can respond to my post, and apparently that's irked a bunch of people. So keep getting this constant complaints about we can't comment to your posts. And the first thing I want to say is, well, you're commenting now because you're just, instead of hitting reply, you're just going at Lavelle Neal with your statement. So yeah, you can reply actually. 2, I decided to have fun with it. And I said, you should know by now that only people I follow can reply. So the challenge for you is to earn my follow. And so that just got set people off at another tangent.
Yeah.
Mike Russo's been assisting
I saw that.
in revving him up. So, I mean, part of it's a bit, the small part of it is because I do get some people on the text string that start using vulgar language and start going haywire. And I do know for a fact I got friends who have their children follow me on social media, and they just don't think it's fair to have those posts where people are just dropping all kinds of vulgar language on it. And I slowly weeded them out. So, but this exercise has been great. This exercise has been fantastic because people have actually replied, and I've actually followed them because of the way they replied. And other people have come back with vulgarity and profanity-laced vitriol, which has made me block them. So it's actually helping me grow and weed out my garden at the same time.
That's all you have to do. By the way, Rosen's Pussycat wants to know if you could follow him on X.
I'll take a look at Rosen's cat and see if it's worthy of a follow.
Yeah. All right, here's where we are. Your Minnesota Wild are down 2-1, the fan has learned. Minnesota Timberwolves are up 2-1. Which series, in your opinion, is more likely to already be over?
Well, based on what the Wolves did yesterday to the Nuggets, I would say that, first of all, props to Jay McDaniels because he called himself out when he made those comments about the Nuggets not being good defenders. Because I was like, as soon as you say that, you kind of put the onus on yourself to kind of take things to another level, and he did last night. And you actually saw it. You saw that whenever they wanted to get into the paint and through the paint, they could do that. They have the type of personnel that could do this. And I don't know how the Nuggets can respond to that because that's just matchups. And in the postseason, especially in NBA, matchups become a big thing. And right now, they cannot stop the Wolves from driving. I don't know if they're going to try to play zone or what, but that just looks like something that's going to be hard to deal with. So I like the Wolves' chances of moving forward. Now, I wasn't happy about Ant leaving the game a couple times, looking like he was a little injured. I hope that's not something that we have to worry about going forward. But it's funny because I looked the Nuggets are favored. They're a 1.5 point favorite for Game 4, which is very interesting. But I like the way that the Wolves approached the game. They know now the formula that they need to beat the Nuggets. Rudy Gobert's having a fantastic series. His defense on Jokic has been great. His defense in general. It's what the Wolves need. And his kind of semi Kareem Abdul-Jabbar skyhook over Jokic was one of the shots of the game for me yesterday, But Dan, we get to this point with the Wolves because it's the one dangerous thing with the Wolves is that if you excel, you're in trouble. Because whenever we think that the Wolves finally have found their niche, that they found their stride, they fall off that stride. And so they've got to prove to us that they're not going to do that in this case. I'm worried about the Wild. I went to practice today. Zuccarello was on the ice a little bit, too. So it looks like he's questionable for the next game, while Trinan's definitely out. But, I had a spirited conversation with Kevin Gorg, Ryan Carter, and Alex Stalock about how the Wild should respond, because I'm at the point now where, I want to see the Wild go after the Stars like Game 1 between Boston and Buffalo, and Game 3 between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, when there were like 4 or 5 guys in the penalty box because one team got sick and tired of it and decided to, get their licks in, because all the heavy hits have been dealt by Dallas in this series. I don't know if John Hines is telling, his guys not to fall for the okie doke or not, but, Jamie Benn needs to be dealt with because he slew-footed Bodie in Game 1. He cross-checked him in the back of the head in Game 3. No one's hit Jason Robertson. No one's hit some of their other guys. Wyatt Johnson's having his way with this team. What are they going to do about it? Now, is that something they're not good at? And if they try to do that, it's just going to make things worse? I don't know. But I like to see a little more physicality out of this Wild team, number one. And Carrillo's going to have to just imagine that Zuccarello's on the ice and that he's going to feed him. He's getting fed a magic pass from the score, because I can't believe that. I know Zucchi and 97 have this simpatico thing going on where Zucchi knows where to put the puck where Carrillo could do the most damage at. But my goodness, he's got to be able to learn how to go without the teammate once in a while. So I'm just curious to see how the Wild approach this next game, man, because I just think they should be a little fed up over some of the stuff that's gone on in the first 3 games.
What are you turning into? Are you a Foligno brother? I don't understand. I mean, it's not about beating up the other team. It's about beating the other team. So you got to do whatever that takes. The last thing this team needs to do is commit more penalties, either by stupid emotion or just by sloppiness. Because we're one of the least penalized teams in the league in the regular season. No team has had to deal with the penalty kill more often in the playoffs this year of the 16 teams than ours.
You could be physical and stay out of the penalty box. That's right. Where I'm getting at with this. You definitely can. I just think the Wild need to bring it a little harder. And they got to figure out the power play as well. You can't go 1 for 7 in the postseason. You can't. You got to figure out a way to solve the penalty kill of Dallas Stars. But no, I'm not advocating all out brawls. I mean, it's great to watch because we were sitting at the Grand Casino Arena watching the Flyers and the Penguins have 5 men each in the box for shenanigans, and it's hilarious to see, and it's quite a sight. But realistically, you just want the Wild to be a little more forceful how they play. They use a Chris Finch term, play with more force, but do it smartly.
A lot of good text coming in. Great sound quality on Lavelle's phone. What happened? I think it's just sheer luck. Sooner or later it was going to be.
Well, 2 things. We now Star Tribune switched over to Verizon for its carrier, which I think matters.
You tell us that.
And 2, I'm I'm in Hamlin's track and field stadium. I'm at the Hamlin's football stadium right now, waiting for a high school track event to begin. Oh. And I'm in a quiet spot with the door closed.
Maybe that's part of it.
Just a confluence of factors here.
This comes from Justin Gard. Lavelle follows me. Does that mean I'm better than the average person? #blessed.
He was better than the average person as soon as I met his wife and realized how lucky he was. So that does not have to be does not have to be verified by me following him on X.
Okay, that's good to know. Is this really you?
No.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay, I thought it might be. I thought you were just playing along with the bit. I didn't recognize the number. It's a good line though. It's pretty good. Then I thought, well, maybe it's Fallness.
Right.
But I don't think that's Fallness.
Which very well could be.
His moniker usually is Justin's conscience is what Fallness tends to go with. Do we have any Twins? I don't even want to talk Twins. Do you? I mean, it's nothing really to say, is there?
No, the bullpen still is very leaky.
Which is shocking.
They fought hard to come back to tie that game at 7 last night.
Right.
And you saw what happened in the bottom of the 8th, which is, there's nothing to demoralize a locker room like a bullpen that blows late games, and especially when a team is doing all it can on the offensive end to get back into a game just to get the reverse facial, in the 8th, that's crushing, man. If that could take a toll on the team if they continue to add up. So that's the one thing Derek Shelton's got to work hard to protect against, is that these guys don't get too far down. I mean, it's still April here, so I'm talking about if this goes into June and they're still doing things like that, it could be a little tough to try to keep the lads' chins up here. And, once again, this is on the decision-making of the ownership / front office to fill out the bullpen the way it is right now. So, but that's it. That's enough for Twins talk this week. There's too much going on in town.
715 guy writes that you need to think big picture, Dan. Last night's pick may be step one towards the young Manning quarterback. KOC is playing long-term chess, not checkers. I've heard that theory before. The fatal flaw is would KOC, is he going to be given another swing at the quarterback prize? I don't think so. By then, I think it might be a little bit too late. Also, Ryan checks in. Yahoo Sports has Downs going number 6. Am I missing something? Well, no, that's Caleb Downs. We got a different Caleb, right? Our Caleb is Banks. So I think he's got he's mistaking one Caleb for another. That's the safety, right? Caleb Downs, I believe. And by the way,
the only Caleb he needs to keep track of is Caleb Williams, my friend.
Oh, here we go. Well played. By the way, maybe either one of you can answer this question, or both. Why is it always pronounced? Why is the name Caleb always pronounced Caleb? Why is it never Caleb? I feel like Caleb should be Caleb, and it's Caleb. Why is that? Is anybody with that spelling call themselves Caleb instead of Caleb?
I don't think
I've never met or heard of anyone called Caleb. It's always been Caleb. And that's a name that goes back hundreds of years too. So I think it's just always been Caleb, but you never know. People like to be unique in today's age. There may be a couple out there having a baby and they're going to probably pronounce it Caleb and just throw everybody off. It's funny because, story I'm working on, because there's a player at Triton High School.
Yes. In
Dodge Center, and his last name is spelled Peterson, but there's an H at the end, next to the N at the end, and so it's Peter Schoen, not Peterson. So I had to figure that one out. But he's one of the better athletes in the state, and he was going to Penn State to play for James Franklin, but Franklin got fired, and he's following Franklin at Virginia Tech. So I went down to do a story on him because he's a terrific athlete. Like he high jumped 6'10" his sophomore year in high school. And like the next day he got 2 Division I phone calls because these teams are looking for athletic freaks that they can turn into the next Tyler Warren, So, but yeah, it's Peter Schoen, Sohn at the end. Okay. So that's a little bit of. I had to ask him what the ethnic background of the name was. He's like, I'm not sure. But okay, so that could have been something that someone just added a word onto. Because anything goes right now when you name your baby. You can have a name that's spelled like Mooney, but you pronounce it money. So you just have to kind of go with the flow.
When does that story drop?
This one's going to drop sometime next week. It's going in the hole here. So, right. That's why I'm here, because he's participating in the track meet, and he jumped 6'10". I jumped 6'10" 2 weeks ago at a meet, which is even more impressive because now he's 6'5" and 205. For him to high jump 6'10" with that weight, that's pretty impressive. So, and he was a quarterback for Triton High School, but he's going to be a tight end in college. So, and no, he did not go to the Gophers because Roman Voss already went there. He's friends with Voss, and the Gophers wanted him to play defense, and he wanted to be a tight end. That's why he didn't go to the Gophers. So, he squashed that rumor. That's been going around in the circles as well.
Gophers have their spring league.
It's pretty cool when you're a columnist. You can come get the different stories like this.
The Gophers have their spring game this weekend?
Tomorrow, 11 to 1.
Tomorrow.
Will you have to be there?
I will be there.
Are we broadcasting live?
We sure are.
Beautiful. 11 to 1?
Yep.
Where at?
They're not playing a lot of heavy hitters, though. You're not going to see Anthony Smith play. They're going to play a bunch of other guys that they're still evaluating.
Huntington Bank Stadium. Be there. 11 to 1.
How many food choices will they have?
Plenty.
That's good to know.
Plenty.
Lavelle, on that note, we're going to let you go. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me. Look forward to next week.
Lavelle Neal III. Trent Tucker in about a half hour. Ben Gessling in about 90 minutes. I've got a couple follow-ups to get to about the draft. Very curious to get some read on this particular text. And we'll review in a little bit more detail as well the Wolves' thorough dispatching of a Denver Nuggets team that looks as if they don't exactly know what to do. Stay